Target * 8 to 10 minutes. Hook * he commanded the most decorated SEAL unit in the Iraq War. Then he came home and almost lost everything. Not to the enemy, to himself. The most decorated SEAL unit of the Iraq War. 22 service members killed in action. A commander who shouldered every single one of those losses. And the philosophy that came out of the darkest place imaginable. This is the come-up of Jocko Willink. The come-up Jocko Willink, discipline equals freedom. Jocko Willink was born on September 8, 1971, in a small town in Connecticut. He was a restless kid, athletic, intense, driven. He enlisted in the Navy in 1990 and went to basic underwater demolition/SEAL training, BUD/S. BUD/S has a 70 to 85% attrition rate. It breaks people. Physically, mentally, emotionally. The cold water. The sleep deprivation. The constant pressure to quit. Jocko didn't quit. He earned his trident and became a Navy SEAL. He deployed multiple times throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. He was in Somalia, Bosnia, Southeast Asia. He was building the foundation of the combat leadership that would define him. But the moment that changed everything came in 2006, in Ramadi, Iraq. Task Unit Bruiser, Jocko's SEAL unit, was deployed to Ramadi, one of the most dangerous cities on earth. It was the height of the Iraq War. Insurgents controlled the streets. Every patrol was a potential ambush. On April 6, 2006, Jocko's unit was in a building-to-building firefight. One of his men, Navy SEAL Mark Lee, was killed in action. Jocko was the one who had to tell the rest of the team. He was the one who had to look at his men and say, "We're going back out tomorrow." He did. They did. And they kept fighting. Over the course of the deployment, Task Unit Bruiser became the most highly decorated SEAL unit of the Iraq War. Two of their snipers, Chris Kyle and Mike Mansour, would become legendary. Mansour would earn the Medal of Honor. Posthumously. Jocko came home from Ramadi and fell apart. Not visibly. Not in the way movies show. It was slow and quiet. He drank. He gained weight. He withdrew from his wife and kids. He was angry at the world, at the losses, at himself. The man who had led the most elite fighting unit in the world was losing the war against his own mind. He didn't call it PTSD, he rarely uses that term. He called it the darkness. And it was winning. The turning point came when his wife, Helen, confronted him. She told him he was losing his family. That he needed to get his act together. That the man she married was disappearing. Jocko did what he'd been trained to do. He assessed the situation. He identified the problem. And he executed a plan. He started waking up at 4:30 a.m. every day. Not because he had to. Because discipline was the antidote to the chaos in his head. He started working out. Hard. Not to get fit, to get control. He started writing. About leadership. About what he'd learned in combat. About what happens when everything falls apart and the only thing standing between you and destruction is the person next to you. He didn't go to therapy and talk about his feelings. He went to war against his own weakness, and he used the same weapon he'd used in Ramadi, discipline. In 2010, Jocko retired from the Navy after 20 years of service. He had no plan. No business. No brand. No following. He started a consulting company, Echelon Front, with his former SEAL colleague Leif Babin. They taught businesses the same leadership principles they'd used in combat: extreme ownership, decentralized command, cover and move. The business grew. But Jocko's real come-up happened on a different battlefield. In 2015, he started a podcast. Just him and a microphone, talking about discipline, leadership, and the realities of war. No script. No gimmicks. Just a former SEAL commander telling the truth. The Jocko podcast now has hundreds of millions of downloads. He reads books on military history, philosophy, and leadership and then dissects them with the intensity of a man who's lived every word. He wrote Extreme Ownership with Leif Babin. It became a #1 New York Times bestseller. Then, The Dichotomy of Leadership. Then Discipline Equals Freedom, a field manual for the mind. The man who almost lost everything to the darkness built an empire on the thing that saved him, discipline. He wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every day. He works out. He writes. He records. He leads. He does this not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Because the easy path is the path to destruction. Jocko Willink went from a quiet kid in Connecticut to the commander of Task Unit Bruiser to a man who nearly lost himself to come home and build something that has impacted millions. His Instagram, a daily photo of his watch at 4:30 a.m., has become a symbol. No excuses. No shortcuts. Just discipline. He didn't write a self-help book with platitudes. He wrote a war manual for your mind. Based on real combat. Real losses. Real darkness. The lesson isn't wake up early. The lesson is, when everything inside you is falling apart, discipline is the framework that holds you together. Discipline Equals Freedom isn't a motivational quote on a poster. It's a combat-tested philosophy from a man who had every reason to quit and chose not to. The darkness doesn't go away. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. And the way you get stronger is discipline. Not motivation that fades. Discipline. Doing the hard thing when the hard thing is the last thing you want to do. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. There is only the work. That was Jocko Willink's come up. From Ramadi to the bestseller list, with the darkness in between. Subscribe for more. Next, a broke actor who sold his dog for $50 and wrote a movie in 3 days that changed his life forever. The come up. Before they were legends, ***.